The Bite Me podcast is coming right up, and it is brought to you every week right here on YouTube by Freedom Boats. It is the best shallow running boat on the water, and there is a model perfect for you. The Chiquita 14, the Eagle 16, the Patriot 18, the Commander 21, the beautiful Warrior like I have 23, or the big boy that runs so shallow, the General 26. Chet Moore and Pooty can customize it however you'd like, and there's a dealer near you, whether it's the Boatyard in Kemah or dealerships in San Antonio, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor, Houston, and Aransas Pass. Freedom Boats or freedomboatsusa.com. All right, let's see what kind of shenanigans the boys are going to get into today. This is the Bite Me podcast. I'm John Lopez. That's Captain Dean Thomas. That's Captain Caleb McCumber. And that is Captain Scott Knoll, who seems to be holding a rodent of some sort. He's calling it a dog that was just born Sunday, but we'll see about that. We'll get that story as well. Bite Me podcast, of course, brought to you every week, man. We like doing this every week. We're really proud of some of the work that has been done. Look at that little rat. And we're going to go into the show talking about something that's important, but lots of topics today. Lots of things to get to. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, Podbean, iTunes, Spotify. You should know that by now. If you don't, go ahead and subscribe. Start on Podbean, and you can get it anywhere you want. Bite Me group page, 10,800 people. Join on there, and we will get to your questions and topics. And at least 3 of the ones today are from that. Also have a really good interview with JT from the Boatyard about some of the little things that people forget to do that can be very, very expensive. I'm sure our boys are going to have some stories about some of their antics that maybe they let slip through the cracks. But let's get into it. Captain Dean, March 16th was not when you were supposed to be back on the water. I believe it was May 16th or thereabouts when you were supposed to be back on the water. And yet there you were posting a video from the marina. I'm curious, was it this just drive around the marina thing, or did you get tempted and get out?
No, I mean, we made it out to the flats, but
of course you did.
The very first flats, and it was the only day, the one day that the wind was 0. And man, you know, the boat needed a little exercise. I needed some sunshine, and I call it therapy. It was part of my therapy, the healing process.
Well, it wasn't prescribed. I seem to remember distinctly, Scott. I remember him distinctly telling me, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna stick to it. You know, I don't want to go through this again."
Oh, yeah.
They say May. I'm gonna stay off the boat. I'm
but
not gonna do
man,
anything.
Look, it's it's sitting on the couch, sitting on the boat. What's the difference?
I've heard Dean say he's going to do a lot of things over the years, and he don't stick to
it. There is a difference. It's called, little boat running, bumping around. Maybe
it's a mental game as well as a physical game, and I have to take care of my my mental well-being.
The way you're justifying things right now is just hilarious. Like, oh no, it was actually better
ages ago.
Yeah, it's like, no, this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. But no, I'm glad you got out there. I'm gonna actually see Dean this weekend. I'm getting down there again finally, and we're gonna do a little road trip. He told me it's like, well, you guys were on that text too. It's like getting a prison visitor with. And by the way, those who have not don't know the story, Dean had reconstructive back surgery, basically. Supposed to be out till May, and he's climbing the wall. So I'm gonna take Dean with me. I'm gonna be the guide, so Carrie gets a break and drive him to Victoria to.
Yeah, it's like a field trip. But no, I was telling John the other day, after being in the house, man, for it's 5 weeks now. So if somebody stops by and they come over, I felt like it was visiting day at the prison. You know, I was like, they come in, and I was like, man, don't leave. You don't have to go.
Is like, time up already?
Hang out. Let me offer you a cold drink and hang around for a little bit.
Go ahead, Caleb. Oh, Caleb's can't hear you.
Caleb's mic's muted.
Yeah. I said, if John's the guy, then Dean won't hurt himself reeling in any big fish. That sounds pretty safe to me.
Oh, yeah. No, we're going in my truck. We're just driving to Victoria and gonna put that first coat of paint on my new Bite Me Edition boat over at Freedom Boat. So Dean says, I want to go. I want to go. Take me.
Hey, if a dude named Tom shows up, scatter.
Why is that?
I'm just saying, if a man named Tom shows up while you're over there in that white suit painting that boat, you might want to just get behind a bush, John.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. We're not going to go there, are we? Hey, man. My mother passed away. She was the only one that was in danger. So anyway, I'm serious. I was like, phew. First time I ever said, I'm glad she's not here. Glad she's not here. All right. So, by the way, we do have good internet signal today, knock on wood. I got to share this story real quick. So I did a lot of editing on last week's podcast, had a couple of glitches with the internet. I got in bed, and I got in bed relatively early, so it wasn't too late. It was like 9:45 or something like that. And I laid there, and it was driving me so crazy that the internet was out and all this other stuff was going on. So I got out of bed, came back out here to my office. It's a true story. Downloaded all new software. Like I had to download all new software, same software. I just downloaded again because I was like, God, that stuff drives me nuts. But anyway, that's where we are. But let's start with some topics here, including Scott. You're going to be my go-to first on this. You probably texted some people. You saw it on the group page. I texted a buddy of ours, and I can read it. But the story this week, and it's making a lot of rounds. Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, is it going to be absorbed by other agencies? How real is this possibility? What it could mean? So the person I texted, I'm not going to put his name out there, but the person I texted said, quote, "No way." But he did say something that I need some explanation from you guys, because I'm not the hunter that you three are, or at least two of you. He said it has to do more with whitetail, deer breeding, and chronic wasting disease. And for those who don't know, the story out there is basically saying the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department is going to go bye-bye and be absorbed by other agencies.
It's not even really a story, except that one legislator produced a possible bill to have Texas Parks and Wildlife disbanded and absorbed into the DPS and the General Land Office and all these other things. Just break them all up.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little looking at it, and that legislator is a deer breeder.
Mm-hmm.
And the state has come down really, really hard in the last few years on all the deer breeding facilities, especially the smaller deer breeding facilities, for chronic wasting disease, which is a disease that affects deer, elk, and some other hoofed animals. There's a lot of debate about chronic wasting disease. A lot of the deer breeders bring in deer from other states, bring them in from all different places. They have to be tested. The ranch that I hunt on over there that I guide on, we have to do all kind of testing on every deer that's shot. We have to take glands out of them. We got to take the brain stem. When we get done cleaning the deer, we take all these tests. We got to turn all that in. And Parks and Wildlife insists on the tests. They don't pay for the tests, so the landowner pays for all the testing. And like last year on that small ranch over there, they wanted 30-something samples from that ranch. We don't have that many deer killed over there. I mean, it's crazy. So they've gone a little overboard, and it's pissed a lot of people off in the deer breeding world. And this legislator is one of the deer breeders. And so he's mad at Parks and Wildlife. So this is the way he wants to get back at them. Ain't going to happen. No way, no how. There's several big reasons why. One of the main ones is the governor appoints the commissioners on Parks and Wildlife Commission. That's kind of a cherry job. It's a non-paying job, but it's got some prestige to it. And that's, I hate to say a payback for donors, but it's kind of a payback for donors.
Yeah.
Their election campaigns and stuff. It's one of those, one of those things. Hey, I want to be a commissioner. And
if it doesn't pay, what's the payback?
It's ego and just, It's to say they are, it's just
Yeah.
somebody wants to be on the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission.
Mhm.
But I mean,
Those deer breeders need to quit breeding those freak ass deer anyway.
He's back, baby. He's back.
I mean, I've never been a fan
and it's
of the genetically modified deer that are produced. A lot of opinions out there. I'm just one of a bunch, but they're creating their own economy, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but they're to me, it's completely unnatural. You see the freaky deer that they're breeding, that are 400 points. So I don't know. It's kind of the deer hunting breeding has morphed into kind of a crazy situation in Texas. I don't know. Do they do that across the country? Is it done in other states to the
yes.
level that it's done in Texas?
I don't know that it's done to this level, but it is done everywhere else. It's done in a lot of other places now.
Mhm.
I think it kind of started here, but where they got in trouble was they brought in. Apparently, there was some deer brought in from up north that had this chronic wasting disease, and it spreads among deer to deer when they're confined in smaller spaces. Is what's being said. They really don't know. There's a Texas Parks and Wildlife Management Area called Kerr Wildlife Management Area that has a game fence around it. They've been doing these studies for years and years and years over there. It has a secondary containment in the very center of it. No deer have ever been brought in. They manage it by taking out, part of the population. No other deer are allowed in it. It's been going on for years, many, many years. And chronic wasting disease showed up inside the inner pen. So explain that one to me. No deer have been
Mhm.
brought in for, I forgot how long it was, a very long time.
Mhm.
But now that's shown up in there. So they really don't know how it's spread. And anyway, that's what it all comes down to. And this whole thing is a bunch of bull. They aren't going to break up Texas Parks and Wildlife. There's too many other parts to it. It's not just game wardens. It's not just deer management. It goes into the parks and the wildlife management areas, and there's so many different things that are involved in it. The fisheries, freshwater, saltwater, the hatcheries. Who's going to run all that?
Yeah.
And they're going to put that under the general land office. It'll just get all messed up.
And that's what gets me about all these people that are pumped up, like, yeah, we need to do it. It's the same people that were complaining and bitching and moaning about the trout limit being reduced. And I read this big old long post about it's a private entity, it's not even government. And what the hell's the problem with that? Do you want the government running it?
Exactly. I was going to ask you about that.
Do you want the government in charge of this stuff? Do you want the money that's collected from your fishing license and stuff to be the government's going to say how much is going back into hunting and fishing? Have you lost your damn mind?
Mhm.
Right? Yeah, parks and wildlife can be annoying from time to time. There's been a game warden hanging around at my marina, and just everybody that pulls up gets checked for fire extinguishers. And yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, but put the government in charge of it and see how much you like it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was going to ask you, Caleb. The other thing is, and you touched on it, like some people, the way they respond to anything, Caleb, is the answer is no. What's the question? Like it's immediately, the Facebook people, the Instagram, all that stuff. The answer is no, and that's what bothered me about this. Is like, oh, as soon as I saw that, and it was posted on our page as well, I said, oh no, here we go.
Yeah, I mean,
go.
do you feel like that if they get rid of parks and wildlife, you don't have to pay for a license anymore? There's not somebody checking to make sure that you're giving your dues to the state and you haven't about what man dang, that's a word I just can't come up with right now. You haven't screwed up and not had what they said that you have to have without paying them money. None of that's going away. It's not
Yeah.
going away. Even if Parks and Wildlife dissolved and now it's some dude wearing a badge that says GLO instead of TPWD, it's going to be the same thing except less
Mhm.
efficient.
and fewer and less manpower.
I mean, Texas does not do a bad job of taking care of their resources. Now, if you feel like Scott and I are little fanboys, little simps for the TPWD, I'll remind y'all that during the freeze, the main dude, maybe the commissioner on his payback, I don't know who the hell he was, gave me and Scott his personal cell phone number, made a group text, and said, "Hey, you guys keep us up to date so we can do the right thing." And about the second week of me and Scott blowing up his phone about what the right thing was, that group text, the bubbles quit turning blue, started turning green, didn't get any answers anymore, did we, Scott?
Yeah, you kind of blocked us.
Yeah. I mean,
He blocked you.
yeah, Scott and I have been
Apparently.
part of the battle. Yes.
apparently we got blocked. No,
He wanted our help until he got it.
Yeah, he wanted help until we gave it to him. Now I've even commented on several of the posts. They're all over the place. Every hunting and fishing board out there's got it going on. But pretty much the only people that I've seen that have said, "Yeah, I'm all for it," deer breeders, outlaws, and guys who are pissed off about the trout limit.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
I'm like
That's the only
7th
ones.
generation run from the game wardens. Like they aren't my people. I genetically I am predispositioned to stay away from a game warden. But in this particular instance, this isn't how any of this needs to be handled. Like Scott said, it won't be handled this way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it did. I'm not going to lie. You know, when I first saw it, Dean, I was like, "Ooh, you know, what's it going to be like if this happens?" But obviously, I texted a couple people, and Scott, obviously, and Caleb are all on top of this. But it did kind of put a little bit of a, you know, I'll put it this way: it does seem to have a ripple effect in the fishing industry, and you know, so that's the thing that we wanted to clear up. You know.
Well, I mean, it seems a little too crazy to even be possible. All of the things that they're involved in, all of the, I mean, when we think of it, we think of, you know, game wardens and enforcement and such as that. But there's such a huge integral part of the wildlife resource in Texas and everything else that takes place. I mean, it just does not make sense. And even they were talking about as soon as this year that it's going to happen, that it's going to be dissolved in September. It's just a lot of scare tactics. And and of course the internet, you know, hey, it's on the internet. It's got to be true, right? We should believe that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It just really does not make sense that it could take place. I mean, state parks, the things that they're involved with, I mean, it's just ingrained in the entire outdoor culture of Texas. And it just, I don't see it happening.
Well, on another note, we got some really good news that you know, sort of became official right as we were finishing the podcast last week, and this is the good part of it here. And Caleb, I really want to start with you on this one because some of the things that this money is going to do, I know Dean and Scott are going to have an opinion, but CCA Texas, I don't throw this term around often because it's pretty strong, but I think it's a paradigm shifting type decision. The management council got $4.4 million in conservation initiatives. And on the one hand, $4.4 million in the grand scheme may not be a lot, but it has a direct effect on one of my favorite bays and one of your home bays, and obviously Port O'Connor as well, and Galveston, a bunch of others, because oyster license buybacks. And it gets a little dicey here for me because the goal is 150 or nothing. You're going to buy back 150 oyster licenses from whomever, or it ain't going to happen. And so that's where I'm getting a little nervous. But do you think they'll get it done? Do you think they'll get 150 licenses? By the way, $30,000 a pop they're offering.
Yeah, this might be a Scott thing because I don't know how many licenses are out there. I do like that they're saying, hey, we're going to do enough to actually make a difference, or we're just not going to waste the money at all. If they spend the money buying back 20 licenses, that's a what, $600,000?
Well, it's 500 and something licenses that are out there. It was between 500 and 600 is what the total was.
I think
but are there 150 there? Is there 150 that ain't operating that this is just easy money for them? And if you buy 150 non-ops, does that even help do anything? Right.
Great question.
Well, you got to start somewhere, and there's probably not 150 that are non-operating, but they did it with the shrimpers, and I believe that is still in place. I mean, there's a bounty on shrimping licenses out there that CCA does or did once upon a time, and yeah, I mean, 150 is a good start, because I think I saw 400 in Copano Bay all at one time a couple months ago.
Well, when you're saying non-operating, they have put a moratorium on new licenses, just like they did shrimpers, just like they've done in the federal waters for snapper fishing. So even if they're non-operating, those guys could sell it to any of the big corporations that are operating. They could sell their licenses to them. I would much rather sell these licenses and have them retired.
They're transferable. That's the way. They're always, so more than likely it's operating. I mean, I'm probably not any sitting stagnant.
Let's see. And the deal is, at this point, everybody says, oh, they're only going to give them 30,000. Well, look at the state of the oyster industry right now. Yes. And those guys are working their butts off. Are they making 30,000 in a year? I mean, it might be kind of nice to get out of it, sell your boat, sell your equipment, and just be done with it and walk away instead of losing money every year. The state's shutting down more and more areas, and there's fewer areas open. That's why when an area is open, like Copano the last few weeks, that every oyster guy in the world goes there. It's got to be a pain in the butt for them too. They're just trying to operate and make enough money to make it make sense. It might make a whole lot more sense to a bunch of them to take that 30,000 and run.
And I don't know what you could sell an oyster boat for. That'd be probably like saying I'm going to sell a crabber boat. I can see a shrimp boat being worth some money, but
those oyster boats are dank, man.
No,
they are dank.
Hey, everybody needs some firewood.
Yeah, big pile of firewood. But Caleb, here's the thing. Okay, so I believe, Scott, you said it's 546 is the number you saw.
If I remember right, I think I saw 546.
All right, so let's say it is a significant, 20 to 25%. What would 20 to 25% fewer oyster boats on your bay mean? I mean, over the long term, it takes a while, but I think it wouldn't take as long as people might think for those oysters to build.
I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds great. Hell, I'd be interested in selling a fishing guide license for 30 grand right now. But
I was exactly right.
How about that?
We never doubted you for a second.
We knew you were.
Can't remember what he had for breakfast, but he remembers that number.
But are the oyster boats? Are the oyster boats allowed to get? Is there like you get to have 500 pounds of oysters when you go to East Bay, or you get to have 30 days to work there? That's the question I have. So would 75% of the boats still cover all of the water that they're driving around in circles and tearing up?
Is it a quota?
Yeah, I mean,
yes. Scott, what's the quota, Scott?
They have limits. I don't know what the limit is, but they do have limits on how many they can bring in per day. And the sizes, of course, there's limits on the size, and it's a drop in the bucket, 150, but it's a start. Same thing was said about the shrimpers, in the beginning.
Yeah, and if you get 150 in the first year, or in the first wave, then there's a second wave, and then, and then it, is it feasible for the oyster guys to continue? What is left of the resource? Is it more? It's a good question. If we had somebody that was actually in the industry, is it, how much money are those guys making? Or is it worth it to keep going? or is it really look inviting to take that money and get out?
Well, and see, things that make it more inviting would be law enforcement actually out on the water and enforcing the "you're getting
Yes.
too close to the bank" thing. Things that
Yes.
would make it less inviting is at the end of the day when that boatload of Chechnyans is all anchored up on the other side of the canal from where I'm sitting, and I'm watching them rake all of the excess oysters off into the side of the intercoastal instead of taking them back to where they got them from like they're supposed to. You know, that little boat ride that takes 2 hours, and take the crap back where you got it that you don't need that you're supposed to.
Mhm.
And if they enforced all the regulations that are already there, it would be less enticing for them to do what they're doing.
All comes together, man.
I
It all
mean,
comes
maybe
together.
But whenever
instead of driving 2 hours back to Matagorda, where they can bag it and everything and rake all of the extra the leftovers off in the side of the intercoastal, maybe if they said, you know what, instead of us to going 2 hours home, 2 hours back, we're going to sort oysters here on the boat in the middle of the bay, and the stuff that we're required to put back, we're going to put it back right now, and drop at least something back on the bottom before you go home. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing is there's rules and regulations that I'm no expert by any means, but I've never seen anybody out there regulating no rules.
Well,
And
on the so on the Lone Star Law, the
Mhm.
game warden, the show
Yeah.
that's on the occasions that you see them, I mean, they don't have a problem when they jump on them boats at showing how far out of line those guys are, man. Keeping undersized, not tossing them back. But then, how many game wardens do we have? And they're fixing to be none, when they cancel them, when they do away with them, there'll be zero enforcement out there. So, but yeah, how much integrity is going on in the oyster fisher people that are out there that are, counting on them to be honest and do their job right.
And Scott, I'm kind of remiss here. I should have mentioned this a lot earlier. We got to give a lot of credit to Chuck Nizer and Flatsworthy, because this is his baby. And if it's successful, then it becomes more prevalent, kind of to Caleb's point. More people maybe donate, more people get involved, and 150 might end up being 350 before long. Imagine waking up in the morning to ocean views on Matagorda Bay, just minutes from world-class fishing. Check out the grand opening of Driftwood Shores at Wolf Point, Saturday, March 29th. 1 to 3 acre properties, all with bay access for only $49.9, with a resort-style pool and cabana, boat slips and launch, boat and RV storage, paved roads, underground utilities, and a lot more. It all happens Saturday, March 29th, so call for your private tour. 832-662-2045. That's 832-662-2045. Get your piece of coastal paradise.
And there's a lot of y'all are too young to remember the shrimpers. Shrimpers used to look just like all of the oyster boats out there. I mean, you'd look out across the bay and you'd see 40, 50, 60 of them working one area. And there were studies done on how much damage they were doing to the bottom of the bay. Like every square foot of Galveston Bay was being raked over 2 to 3 times a month. It was very damaging. So they started buying them back. They put the
And so
moratorium on
that's
them and started buying them back. Now look around. You don't see hardly any bay shrimpers anymore. There's
and
very
another
few.
another aspect of that is they damn near fished shrimp to extinction because it was unlimited. They fished themselves out of business. That's when the shrimping industry collapsed. Look, man, Aransas Pass, shrimping capital of the world. There were more shrimp boats here still to this day. I mean, that is the claim to fame of this town. It's what built this town. There were thousands of shrimpers that came here throughout the year. And I mean, I hear the stories. I know the old time shrimpers, the families that they hate to tell the story. They blame it on everything else, but they pretty much fished themselves out of a job because they raped the resource, unlimited abuse of the resource. And yeah, so we're pretty close to that's where the oysters are now. I mean, we hear it every day. You see pictures of historically what it was and the reality of what it is now.
Now, of course, it ties in with what we do, talking about fishing and fishing. And, Scott's talking about you guys don't remember this. I think a lot of our listeners, we have listeners, from very young ages, all the way to our age and beyond. But Caleb, I don't know if Scott, Dean, and myself are going to be here in 25 years, but you are, God willing.
I mean, this touch and go coming up the stairs a while ago.
Okay, but let's say you are, on the off chance that you're still here in 25 years. I can't, my thing that optimist and all that stuff, if we get 30 to 40% back of the actual oyster reefs, man, those glory days are you've heard Scott and I and Dean talk about them. I mean, it's unbelievable. And couple that with the limits. I mean, we could be on the, early stages of, glory days again, fishing.
Oh, I mean, it definitely ain't going to hurt anything. It definitely isn't going to hurt anything. The structure holds bait, bait catches fish, fish eat the bait. The fish are healthier. There's more of them. It's some sort of a circle of life or something, Kuna Matata.
I like John's optimistic outlook on the future.
I just try to roll with it.
I tend to be quite more pessimistic when I can see what has happened just in the last 25 years. When I compare what I saw 25 years ago to what is now, and then the rate of industrial encroachment, the rate of population on the coast increase, the rate of licensed sales, the rate of all of those increases, there's not going to be another glory days. And look across the world, across the globe, at fisheries that have collapsed, that are not coming back. So I hate to be doom and gloom about that subject.
I get it.
But when you look at the, if there was a bar graph and you put a line across the screen to showing, how far that line is dropped in the short amount of time, I don't think that line's coming back to that spot in 25 years.
Yeah. So anyway, sign up for Angler U if you want to become a better fisherman for the future. Who Dean, let me remind you, works for.
Tap into that. Well, when you're better, you're tapping into the resource that's left.
We're just
Caleb
selling.
May or may not be here either. It's going to be Cade running Angler U here in a minute. But
I'm not sure I'm going to outrun Steve, man.
But okay, so look, I get it, Dean, totally, and I'm not saying it is going to be the glory days. What I'm saying is we're on the cusp of at least starting to get some of those oyster reefs back. And Scott, I don't know if you were thinking the same thing I was thinking. I mean, Exhibit A is the bass world. There is a chance for better fishing. There's encroachment in the bass world on all these lakes. Have you been to Lake Conroe lately? There is industry, all these power plants, all this other stuff, and yet the bass world has managed to at least find something.
It's looking brighter than it was 4 or 5 years ago. As far as my outlook on the future is brighter now than it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Thank you.
I think
keep going.
I mean, I'm already seeing the turnaround on the trout with the new limits. Honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, I never ever thought we would get that much approval and that much support for a reduced trout limit. When that came around, I was like, man, we're going to have a hell of a fight on our hands trying to do this. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, the overall majority were like, yeah, we need to do this. So the attitudes are changing, at least in that regard, among most.
I'll tell you one attitude that hasn't changed.
I know there's a few that haven't changed.
Dean.
Yeah. But
I thought you were going to talk about one of our Facebook posters.
There's more catch and release. There's more acceptance of that. There's more acceptance of, hey, we need to take better care of the fishery. I mean, have we reached a point of no return? In Dean's mind, yeah. In my mind, I think maybe we bottomed out and we're moving back in the right direction. There's more and more big trout being
caught over here. Look at these cleaning tables during spring break right here in Aransas Pass. You know what's piled up on those tables? Black drum. You know why they're covered up with black drum?
Because they're taking care of the trout.
Exactly.
I've seen
I mean,
more and
we've had
more
that
about
we've had that
Goosehead this year.
conversation. Yes, we've had that conversation over the years repeatedly about why there's more black drum coming to the cleaning tables, because it is the opportunity that is there now. I'd try, I try to have hope for the future, but the reality is, I mean, I look at these flats that I fish from what the seagrass and the stuff that is there, the way that it looks now compared to the way it was. And I have said in my lifetime, I'm watching the death of Ransom Flats right here in front of me. The thing about Ransom Flats is it is really close to 3 or 4 of the busiest boat ramps in Texas. So they are like a science project right there of showing what is happening across probably the rest of the state. And then you look at Port Mansfield, how Port Mansfield used to be that far away, edge of civilization kind of place that is probably as busy as Aransas Pass is now on any given weekend. So we have to live in reality land and understand the pressure that the resource is under. Trust me, you can still go out there and have amazing, spectacular days. And the mindset has got to change. Is it take a collapse to change the way people think and realize that it is a resource that should be preserved? Or, the speckled trout thing, though, just like Scott said, I never would have expected those strict limits to be so well received. And they were. Time will tell.
Go ahead, Scott. You were going to add something on that.
Caleb's got, a lot of time to research it for us.
At least 25 years.
Yeah. I've seen him act. I know how he. I've been around him enough to know that.
Are you taking the over or the under? You taking the over?
Going under. So you were asking about the limits and stuff earlier. Somebody was. Oyster season opens November 1st through April 30th. Oystering days Monday through Fridays. Sunrise to 3:30 p.m. And they are limited to 30 sacks of legal-sized oysters.
How much in a sack?
Doesn't say how much is in a sack.
It's like a 40-pound sack.
Yeah,
How many oysters do you make 40 pounds?
Oh, it's a bunch.
You think like maybe 100? Probably.
It depends on how big they are.
What do you reckon? Like a regular oyster weighs like a quarter of a pound.
I think they have to be 3 inches.
Cheeseburger.
I watched Lone Star Law too. I think.
They're tiny.
I think it's 3 inches.
Yeah, they have to be 3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
That was per day.
Yep, per day.
So, is there an industry quota? So, say like they're
no.
So they have
a sketch,
So they have 30 days, and
what ends up happening is Parks and Wildlife, whatever areas are open, they have distinct mapped out areas, the zones, oystering zones. Within that zone, Parks and Wildlife goes out and constantly samples those areas. And when a certain percentage of oysters is under 3 inches, then they shut that area down. Mm-hmm. That means it's been fished to its max and they shut it down. They continue to cycle through and they sample throughout the season. And when they reach that certain percentage over 3 inches, they open that area back up. And that's why you see this gold rush of everybody running in there when there's a certain percentage and they open it back up. And that's the biggest problem that I see. It's a constant which bay is open. And there's only a handful that are open at any one time because they rape them so hard that they close them pretty quick after they've gotten into them because the percentages go down so fast. And then they're open up the next one and they all take off for that. I've seen them mass exodus, when they've opened or closed Matagorda and they opened Copano. I mean, our intercoastal looked like a dead Southwest Freeway at 5 o'clock. I mean, it was a bunch of jalopies though going down through there, and I think that's a huge part of the problem is the way it's managed right now. And because they send them back and forth.
I often
And
wonder
that's
what's
got to be the slowest boat race you've ever seen going
Try
down,
getting around that. Go ahead, Caleb.
going down the intercoastal.
I've often wondered what some piles of cinder blocks have done to some shrimp nets. You think? I mean, oyster nets. Reckon how they
Yeah.
respond to that?
They don't.
Well,
use
they don't net them. They have this grapple, this little
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like a little drag line bucket.
That's
Yeah.
a good point you make there.
Yeah, and if it takes care of oysters, I don't think it's going to have a problem with cinder blocks.
Oh, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe big ones, but we're not encouraging anything here, except maybe Caleb. It was a nice thought. I will say, I'm pretty happy with what we have done here. Not to be pull a muscle, patting ourselves on the back or anything, but I think being able to at least let people know what's going on here, us and others. I'm not going to take exclusive credit here, but that's the other part of this is the messaging. I think it's starting to resonate, not just from us, from across the state. And part of it is Scott, like the messaging that you see when you go fishing. I mean, you can't tell me how many guys have you talked to? Dean's talked about it. Caleb's talked about it. That used to just pile on those fish, and now they're like, you might want to release some of those.
Yeah, it's getting better. Dean's in the fish killing capital of Texas. I mean, there's a bunch of old time guides around him that. I mean, there's guys over there that make a living cleaning fish for those guides.
And the problem that I have also is there's a whole new generation doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, you could blame the old dudes, this and that. The internet world, scroll through the pictures, scroll through them, man. There is a whole nother generation. Kind of want to say behind me now because I'm like the old dude out there. But I don't think it has changed enough across the board. Of course, there is, and we've said that before. At least it's a conversation now. Before it wasn't even a conversation. There are, I don't know how much bullshitting is taking place out there in the world. If it's a real thing, people say the right thing whenever they have to, and then whenever they're out there, they do otherwise. But and then of course the dudes that got all their sponsors for all their lure companies, but they come in every afternoon with a pile of black drum on the deck that I know they didn't catch on top water.
They didn't use lures. And then the other thing, last thing, I just like digging in on topics like this and getting them covered real thoroughly, but it kind of ties in with our first topic, Caleb. And then there's someone out there, at least one state representative out there that actually thinks state troopers can regulate this, can monitor this, because that was the discussion. Like, oh well, what about the game wardens? Well, they're technically state troopers, so we can get some state. Are you kidding me? I mean, state troopers. How many of them actually know what they're doing when it comes to the?
And then the question on that is, Texas Parks and Wildlife has these game wardens that have a fleet of boats and they have experience on the water and they've spent 100 years building that experience. And how do you replace that with the new guy?
The game wardens will just take a job as a state employee, but I'll tell you right now, the tent on my window on my boat is not going to pass.
Oh, that's the window tinting. You're gonna have a tail light out. They're gonna pull you over.
Yeah, that ain't no kidding. And I don't think I've remembered to put a license plate on a boat trailer for the past 3 years. They're all up over my visor. I wonder if that'd get more strict at the boat ramp.
Well, I remember about 15 years ago, I went from one boat to another, and I put the TX number on my new boat, and it was the TX number from my old boat, and I just had it on there the whole time. Nobody ever said anything. Nobody ever. I mean, I got
Port O'Connor. I got hammered for that one time, but the boat was actually new. Yeah, there's gonna be an AU video coming out, and I'm gonna be pulled over. I'm gonna be sitting in my boat yelling, "I know my rights." That's what's gonna happen.
Keep your hands on the wheel. Keep your hands on the wheel. Don't get out of that boat. Don't you get out of that boat. You keep your hands on the wheel.
Am I being detained?
That's right. What's the charge? What did I do wrong?
Y'all seen that DPS patrol boat? That big son of a gun.
Oh yeah,
big
yeah.
machine gun on the front.
That thing rolled over me. That thing
Yeah.
rolled up on me in the intercoastal in West Matagorda. And I was standing on the back of my boat taking a leak, and they come rolling up that big old gun and stuff. And I just kept taking a leak, so I seemed like super. This guy is not up to nothing. There was a time, what was it, Scott? Maybe like 10 years ago, whenever they were running illegals and drugs and stuff up the intercoastal real bad, I guess. And there was a DPS task force, and that great big one with the 50 cal on the front and like trips on the back. And I had a gun in my hand, you know. They come
Man,
straight up there and shut it down. And
A pea shooter.
folks,
Technically, it was a pea shooter.
They run out of Aransas Pass here all the time because they go out the pass to the Gulf. I mean, they monitor the Corpus Christi ship channel as well. But here, I mean, we have Homeland Security, we got Texas Parks and Wildlife, we got the game wardens, and then we got the local
County?
the Aransas Pass city cops. They actually have a boat, and you ain't never seen a group of guys who look more out of place on the water. And it's crazy because, I mean, game wardens, they wear uniforms that are kind of appropriate to be outdoors and be on a boat. These city boats, these dudes are in their patrol uniforms, and it's just funny whenever you see them going by. And yeah, man, I never really thought about that, but they're checking window tint and license plates and seat belts. And
when me and Daniel were fishing the World Series, I'm up on the tower and I see this like a little aluminum boat with a tiller drive, and it's buzzing across Black Lake, right? And I'm looking at them, and clearly they ain't fishing. Here they come, and I'm looking, and Daniel said, "You think that's the cops?" I was like, "I don't know." And he hit a like a wave completely wrong, and the one standing in the front like Jack Sparrow busted his ass. I looked at Daniel and said, "I think they're cops," and they were.
It's a dead giveaway.
This guy ate it, man. On the like, oh, yeah. They're out funning in the day, boys.
I would like back that the two of the DPS boats were here. They were at Speedy Stop, pulled up to the gas pumps, and they were sitting over there. And a bunch of young guys. They're you could tell they're all young and fit and enjoying the hell out of life running those boats. And I had talked to a couple of them. I was gassing my little 25-foot boat up next to them. Didn't look like much, and they're chatting it up. Everything's cool. And I said, "So y'all out here training or what?" He said, "Oh yeah, we were doing some training exercises." I said, "Man, that's got to be fun." He said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "How fast will these things go?" And he just looked at his buddy. He says, "We're not supposed to talk about that."
Oh God. I'd like to see him come. I'd like to see him come get me in the flats.
I bet it'll crank every bit of 85. That big boat.
Man, I was in the middle of the channel fighting a big old Jack Crevalle a couple years ago, and the DPS boat, they pulled up and they slowed down because they were watching me fight this fish round and round, and they actually got close enough. And I yelled at one of them. I said, "Man, you got a fishing pole on that boat?" I said, "Drop a line down here." And that's what he told me. He said, we can't talk about that. And I was like, "Join the club, bro, man. Catch you a fish." But I'd like to see those dudes start patrolling Redfish Bay in their big old
that's what I'm saying.
40-footer.
I was over in South Carolina. I got to see the Coast Guard, the big boats like that with the coasties, and they were doing some training stuff, and they were chasing another boat, and it was all training. But this other boat was zigzagging and doing all kinds of stuff, and they had the two big boats working in tandem to stay on it. Even when that little boat would make a turn, the boat behind it, the bigger boat behind it could make the turn, and then the one in the lead just switched over to being second. They went all over that bay, man. They were. I look back on it going, man, that's where I should have joined. Instead of the Houston Police Department, I should have gotten in that. That looks like way more fun than running around on the streets.
After a 38-minute discussion with Dean and this whole Parks and Wildlife thing, I'm thinking Parks and Wildlife, if it gets dissolved, we'll have videos of Dean rolling around going, "Citizens erased! Citizens erased!"
How about that guy he found in the bay? He'd have a badge.
Hey, I'm gonna fill up the gap that's missing, man. Be out there.
That's all we need is Dean with a badge and a gun.
Well, the problem is to be a cop, you got to have that sixth sense and start catching on to when something's hinky. Dean gave the guy a ride
I
and
know.
dropped him off.
Yeah.
Well, that was during the
Yeah.
Good
Texas
luck.
release
Good luck
years.
to you. Good luck to you.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm probably not the best dude to fill up that gap.
Dean's one of the guys that Trump campaigned on, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I could see a lot more opportunity though, too, man. With some side gigs if I was in that position.
Well, I had a really good interview. I talked about it earlier with JT, but I'd rather get to the if you could only have one this week. I know JT will understand. It's a great interview on some of the things that you're going into the spring, the very little things that you need to do, or else it could be a very expensive problem later. So we're going to bump that to next week because I want to get into this topic. Then we'll get into what would Scott do and Caleb and Dean later. But this was on the group page, and Scott, you sent it to me, and of course my little pea brain started going in other directions as well. But I thought it was pretty interesting. If you could only have one, so I'll start with you and see what the other fellas want to say, and I got some other follow-ups on this. If you could only have a power pole or spot lock trolling motor, what would it be?
for me personally, it's the trolling motor. 99 out of 100. My last boat didn't even have a power pole on it. I didn't miss it one bit. But I don't fish shallow water like that. So if you're going to be fishing the jetties and the beachfront, it's 100% the power pole or the trolling motor. If you're going to be fishing the flats, then it's more of a toss up depending on how you like to fish them.
Well,
Yeah, I don't use my spot lock much.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Maybe it applies to Dean and I more, but like if you're in a place where you fish the bays, but you also can fish jetties and you can also fish channels, and I don't know, there's places to go in the jetties, where you guys are as well. But if you're like one of us that can do a little bit of everything, what would you pick if you could only have one, Dean?
Man, I mean, I don't think I've ever used the spot lock on my troll motor ever. And I guess I use the troll motor more than the power pole. But the only time I use the troll motor is, days whenever there is zero wind and I'm using it to create a drift, or to control my drift and such as that. So, and then it's kind of 50-50, man. I use the pole, to battle the wind, to park it and slow it down. So, I mean, where do these questions come from, man?
Our listeners, man. Our listeners are
why did they make me choose between one or the other?
Well, have you chosen yet? I haven't heard you choose yet.
Spend the money and get both. I would probably have to go with troll motor if I was pinned down to an answer.
But he's not. But the question ain't trolling motor or power poles. It's spot lock or power poles.
Oh, well, then it's.
It was a spot lock trolling motor. Every trolling motor has spot lock on it now. So
yeah,
that's kind of.
Unless you're. Okay, John, would you choose between paddling with a net or paddling with a 2x6?
Okay. See, I'm just glad that I can always provide some level of topics that are lingering. I posted that video of when I peed on a crackhead.
How hard is it to hold your position while paddling with a net?
It's really hard, man. I'm telling you, it's really, really hard. Trust me, I had the cramps in my legs to prove it. So a couple more here on this because this is what I was thinking about. All right, so we've done something similar to this before, Caleb, but this is going to be boat related, specific to your boat. An LED bow light or deck lighting.
A bow's the one on your motor on the back, right?
No.
The bow light, right?
No, it's not.
What the hell you mean it's not? That's a stern. Why would somebody have a bow light on their LED? On their I don't know.
A light on their bow.
Like pointing out in the water?
Yeah.
Well, what's that have to do with courtesy lights?
Nothing. But the courtesy lights help you get on the boat without falling on
Are
your
you
ass.
talking about a light bar or courtesy lights?
A light bar or courtesy lights, yeah.
Light bar, definitely. Definitely.
I don't know, man. Stepping on those boats and when it's dark can be a little dicey. I know Dean had a run in with that not too long ago before.
Yeah,
surgery.
but once you step on that some gun and it goes dark and it's time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now and because I've got fancy courtesy lights on my boat. They make colors. They'll blink with the music. Dum, 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 dum,
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, they're cool and everything, but I can't hardly stand to run with them because they blind me. I mean,
Yeah.
I fish from 9 to 3, dog. Neither one of them really matters much to me.
Mm-hmm.
but I'll go with bow lights, and I'll just use, at Matagorda we have novelties such as lights around the docks.
Yeah, that's true, but not where I am. Maybe that was more particular to me because it gets dark. My light is still out on my marina slip, but and so it gets a little dicey. I'm getting a light bar on the new Warrior. That was one of my first things that I asked. All right, so Scott, let me ask you this because I think this one's an interesting one, and it's very much a 21st century type thing. Starlink or a VHF radio, Mr. Beachfront?
Man,
you can watch football with Starlink.
Yeah, Starlink would be pretty damn cool out there. I never really thought about it, but it would be cool.
All the offshore boats in Matagorda are going to Starlink now.
All the boats that I've been around that are going offshore are Starlink because you can still get a hold of anyone by just making a call. My answer is Starlink, by the way. Over the VHF radios, last of a dying breed that are out there right now because Starlink, you can not only you can call Texas Parks and Wildlife or the game warden or anything just by like with a phone, and you can watch your favorite team on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to do Starlink over VHF, but on the VHF side, that is the one that Coast Guard and all the ships and everybody that's out there, commercial boats and everybody, they're all listening to the VHF. So if you got an emergency where you need something quick, fast,
I can post on Facebook fast.
Yeah,
I mean,
then
Mayday.
But then how many people can get to you fast?
But my thing is, you can call the Coast Guard just like as easily as VHF. I think I'd take Starlink all day.
The Coast Guard is back there in Matagorda or Port O'Connor. You're 30 miles out, and there's a shrimp boat 5 miles away from you. I'd rather be able to get in touch with that shrimp boat.
Oh no, well that's true. Yeah, that part is absolutely true.
I got a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the flare gun.
A whistle.
He really wants a gun and a badge. He really wants a gun and a badge badly.
Brian commented earlier, you reckon Dean to be the guy that his gun has to be unloaded and he has one bullet in his pocket, like Barney Fife?
Like Barney Fife? Like
I can see an Andy Barney thing going on over there with Scott and Dean.
But Starlink is the ultimate, though, man. I mean, you have all of those worlds in one place, man.
If I'm going down, I can put it on Reddit.
Your flare gun, your whistle, and everything.
You could go live on YouTube. I'm dying here, folks. I lost the bet. It ain't gonna be 25 years.
Hey, this post is gonna get many likes.
I'm going down, but I'm going viral.
That's right. Very good. All right. How's the fishing been, Caleb? Tell us about.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
When Miss LSU was topless on my boat, would you rather have Starlink or VHF?
Look who you're talking to. Look who you're talking to. What the hell? You can answer that blindfolded.
I still wasn't going to put nothing up though, because she might have seen me and got untopless.
How's fishing been? What you been doing, Caleb?
Man, it's last week was better. I'm going again tomorrow to see. There's like a little frontal passage during the day tomorrow, and I'm hoping that frontal passage will get them going because there's been a lot of fish where I'm at, but some days they eat and some days they don't, and the days they don't, it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me. I get short struck like crazy, and talking to the guys, I talk to Paradosky pretty often, talk to Pat, and the fishing particularly drifting, hasn't really picked up since this last cold snap like it did after the last one.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's the different wind directions every day, what it is, but there's tons of tiny bait fish out there. It's starting to get to be into the exciting part of the year. We just need the wind to chill out. I'm back to running trips, but I got like 1 day a week that I'm willing to
Yeah.
take somebody's money to go do it.
Yeah.
Well, I have been getting my fishing reports from Andrew
Oh, well,
John
then-
Lopez's number one fan.
You can't trust those. you can't trust those at all.
And
They got
according
talked
to
too much.
Andrew, the
Yeah.
fishing has been great out there.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Andrew, if you're listening, hit me up for your free Angler U membership just by the look that John just got on his face. Hit me up. I will make you an honorary VIP, sir.
No, it was so awesome. I got to meet Andrew in person today, and he was picking up some a shootout to deal with the wind. And man, he just sent his most sincere greetings to John Lopez. And
did he show you how he does Photoshop on all the pictures?
I think Andrew's the reason John won't be here in 25 years.
It's either that or the internet connection.
yeah, one or the other.
One of those is going to get him.
I don't remember the actual original question or how it was posed, but
no, we've kind of seen we were see how seamlessly I went right into what's got.
I haven't spent a lot of time on the water, but from my network, the guys that are out there, fishing has been pretty decent, man, in spite of the wind that's been blowing. But it's been all over the place this week. We've had good days mixed in. I mean, a couple days I even took my broke back out there in zero wind, but that afternoon it was blowing. Then the next day, today it's blowing. This gust I saw on the news a minute ago to 38. And then tomorrow morning we're supposed to have really calm winds again.
Hold on, I just heard you say a couple times you've been
I did it. I heard it. Yep.
Right?
Say what?
You said a couple times you've been out.
Oh, I heard the Brokeback part.
Oh no, I only made it once.
You know, whenever Steve had, I think,
but
Steve
I was thinking about tomorrow.
Steve has like 7 screws in him, and he weighs 9 pounds. And the vet wouldn't let him out of his crate for like 2.5 months.
Exactly. Gene needs a crate.
We need a crate, and one of them collars make him look like a lamp too.
He needs a cone of shame and a crate.
Man, dude, this house felt. I know exactly how that little puppy felt, because this house is like, I feel like I've been living in a crate for 5 weeks.
We need to ask Carrie if Dean's bad about licking himself right now.
Whenever Carrie
maybe
gets
the windows
mad,
are getting a break.
Whenever Carrie gets mad at Dean, she hits him on the nose with newspaper.
little spray bottle. No.
All right, Scott, wind advisory this morning. As soon as I got in my truck, I'm like, good Lord, when is this going to stop? What's anything you would do here?
And what was my reply to you?
Yeah, it's March.
It's March.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, good luck. It's so all over the place. Yeah, I've had a few days here and there where I was looking at getting out and going, and I'm thinking, all right, the forecast looks pretty good. I think it's going to be a good. Nope. Wake up in the morning, take the dogs out, and it's just like ripping. This morning was one of them. I mean, there was some boxes on my front porch from a little delivery the other day. I don't know where they are now. I have no idea.
They blew away?
They're gone. I don't know where they went. I'm not really sure. I even kind of scanned the edges of the brush, and I don't see them anywhere. Yeah, it's just the way it's been. And I don't know if they went north, south, east, or west, because the wind's been changing. It's all over the place. It makes it really hard to come up with a fishing plan. If you're going to slide out there, try to watch your area that you're intending to go fish. Keep an eye on it for 3 or 4 days ahead of time and see what that tide does with various winds, and see what the various winds actually are, because the predictions ain't right. So go in there and kind of scale it and watch it. And then that kind of gives you an idea of where you might find some clean water.
Tomorrow morning is 6 miles an hour and nothing over 11 all day.
Y'all
Yep,
ever
tomorrow's
notice that
the only day
Dean
of the
never
week.
believes a forecast unless it's a
And
good one?
then by midnight, gusting to 30.
Yeah.
Yep, tomorrow's the only day.
Yeah, 'cause
20
I
in
looked at Saturday and
24
Sunday.
hours. In
Yeah.
24 hours, it's going from 38 to 6 back to 30.
And
Yeah.
somehow you believe that's 6.
That's true. Like it's going to be
I-
squeezed in right in the middle.
There's a direction
Crazy.
change coming tomorrow. So I
Yes,
think we have
exactly.
at least 3 hours of not terrible.
North wind tomorrow.
So what you're saying is it's a good time to get your boat built, like I am, and hopefully,
Man, it is a good time to have back surgery. It's a good time to build a boat. It's a good time to anything.
Work
Yeah.
on your tackle. Yeah, I mean that's.
Well, I've done a
probably-
lot of that, and I have done a lot of that. I've caught up on a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Single drop hooks,
Pull
and
your reels,
leaders, and reels, and all that stuff. And
change the oil in your lower unit.
well, I don't have one right now, but you could. But I'll be back down there. Actually,
Check
I'm
your
going.
lights on your trailer,
I'm gonna be
Caleb.
in your neighborhood the next weekend, kind of, Scott, because I'm gonna go down. My friend over at that Driftwood Shores that we talked about, they're having their big grand opening or whatever. So I'm gonna go hang out there. So I might pop by the following Saturday, Scott. But that's neither here nor there. Anything? I know Dean doesn't have anything booked officially. I should say officially. Caleb, give us an Angler U update. I like to talk about that when I can. And then Scott, anything happening with you before we get out of here?
And tonight we have Captain Steve Hillman on from Galveston, which Steve and I talked about 45 minutes last night, and it's going to be a banger with him tonight. And if you are in there present, we're giving away a pair of Bart's Bay Armor boots. We even let you choose your size. So we're really excited about that option.
Scott?
Choose your size. Whoa, no, I'm tuning in for that one.
Yeah, I got nothing, man. Yeah, I got a million and one things going. I'm trying to get all caught up before the tarpon season kicks off, and it kicks my butt on the daily
Yeah.
basis. I just want to get everything all lined out before that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
and we got a bunch of Aussie puppies in there that were
Yeah.
born.
What's the story on that? I said I was going to get your
They
story.
were- yeah, it wasn't planned. I mean, they're all high end dogs, and with all kind of pedigrees, but we didn't really expect this one. They kind of snuck it in on us.
So it is yours.
Oh yeah,
Somebody snuck it in.
We have a whole litter in there.
Snuck it in on a high-end dog.
A high end dog snuck it in on a high end dog.
Yeah.
The
And,
ends on those dogs ain't very high.
No, they're not.
about a week and a half ago or so, we were looking at Macy as she walked by and went, "Does she look pregnant?"
Oh no.
Yeah, she does look pregnant. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And then Sunday night into Monday morning, we had about 12 hours of labor to get all the pups out. So
If you
we have-
even post that crap on Facebook, text my wife. I am Facebook Messenger, any of that, we're gonna have problems.
your wife is getting a personal invite to come see them.
We are gonna
Lord.
have problems, bud.
Scott, I need you to start a new group text this evening and include everybody on there and puppy pictures.
And puppy pictures and wives.
Yes. That could
Oh,
entertain
boy.
me for a day or two.
Yeah. Well, this is fun, man. Dean, great having you back to your old self, or at least on the podcast, your old self. I know you're still hurting and moving slowly, but
Look
been a
for
lot
a
of
fishing
fun.
report tomorrow.
All right, we will do that.
6 mile an hour wind.
Yeah. Appreciate everybody joining us live here on the YouTube stream, which I didn't mention earlier. You can do that. We record at 3:30 every Tuesday, and then it's posted. This one's going to be a lot less editing. I'm going to sleep better tonight. We post the podcast on all the platforms. Subscribe there. I prefer Podbean, just because you can get all the episodes there. Posted about 6 o'clock, and it's great having all these smiling faces in front of me again. let's just keep it up. We've got a lot of topics already that are in the can for next week already, and we'll get some more for you guys as well. You guys have a great week, great weekend. Catch it up. We're going to talk to you next time.
I can just see Dean pulled up beside somebody's boat with his